Hi there, crafty friends. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Today, I thought we would make a card using Altenews Parchment Bouquet layering die set. This is a 14-piece layering die set, and I just love this image down here. So I've got everything all die cut just to make it a little quicker. My wrapper here, I've got out of some craft cardstock. And you could do this out of any color. You know, I was thinking maybe out of white and then red flowers would be really pretty for Valentine's Day. Most items I did cut twice. So we've got our greenery pieces here twice. We've got our flowers. I did do one flower twice and one flower once. We've got our leaves. I only did that once. We've got our little bow here. And then we've got a couple pieces that we are not going to use today. We've got a stem, and then this other stem fits right on what I am using for my piece for baby's breath. And it's just so thin. I didn't even want to bother trying to glue that. I am particular about glue, and I just didn't want it seeping through. Then we've got this other little piece that you can layer flowers on, but I'm not using that. And these are the flowers that you would layer on that. I just cut a whole bunch of little white flowers here, and I am using that for my baby's breath. We need to do some ink blending, so let's get started with that. So let's start with our flowers. I thought we would use turquoise and paradise from Pink Fresh Studio. And then I've also got lemon whip and marigold, and that will be for the centerpiece on our flowers. Let's actually do those first. And the die set comes with 2 flowers, but like I said, I did an extra one of the 1 flower because I wanted my bouquet to be a little fuller. So let's start ink blending. I hope everybody is doing fabulous. You know, it is starting to cool off here. I woke up this morning and it was 30 something outside. I am not happy. I like summertime, and I am definitely going to miss the warmer, longer days. So just a little bit of lemon whip here, and then we will come in with some marigold. And I am just going to hit the base of that flower or the center with a little bit darker color. Now we can move on to our flowers. We will start with turquoise. I am just going to start at the base of that flower and just add some color. So the other day we were out, and I hate to admit it, but I did get some Halloween decorations. I have some that are really old. We need to get rid of them. And so I got a couple to replace some things that I am going to throw away. We had a butler, a scary butler that I used to put at the front door, and he's just falling apart. So we threw him away last year. I am getting something to replace him at the front door, and it's just time for a couple new things. All of my decorations I have had for forever, well over 20 years. Let's bring in some paradise, which is our darker blue. And I don't want to necessarily go too heavy, but I do want some definition in there. I think that's good. We can move on to our greenery pieces. And then for our greenery, I'm not even going to do the lighter green. We are just going to do our sprig pieces and our leaves. And for my darker green, I am going to bring in evergreen. And I just am going to stick pretty much to the center of those leaves and just add some color. A lot of it will get covered up, but we do want some shading in there. Then the same thing for our other sprig. And then for my leaves, I am just going to bring in all of it. I'm just trying to figure out which side of the leaf looks like it's the base, and that's where I will add my shading. Then we can push these aside and work on our wrapper. And for my wrapper, I am going to bring in dough. Everything I use today will be listed and linked in the description below. And we don't even need to do with the centerpiece because that will be covered up. We are going to add some shading to these two pieces of wrapper that will show in the front. And it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. And that shading, that ink will smooth out as it dries. Perfect. So now we can already start assembling. And look at these flowers. They are so pretty. There are embossed lines in there, and that really gives nice detail. So let's go ahead and start with our wrapper first. So for our wrapper, I am going to bring in a little bit of foam tape, and we are going to put that starting at the top. We can cut a little bit off, and that way that'll fit in there just a little bit better. We are not going to go all the way down because we are going to glue the back or the bottom at the very end. We'll just attach that. And there is one piece that you want to add second, and that is the piece with the embossed marks on it. So let's go ahead and add our first piece of our wrapper. And I'm just taking that down at the bottom, lining it up, and then I can press in the long end. And I'll do the same thing here again. I'm just lining that up, and then I will press down the long end that has the foam tape. And then we've got a little bit of dimension in there. So let's go ahead and build our flowers. So, like I said, this is the keyhole technology, and we have one flower that has little arrows in it, and all of those will go as one flower. And this has a number 2, so I know I need to layer that piece second. This little piece has a number 1 on it, and we will line up those keyholes just like that. And we can distinguish the flower pieces from each other because one has an arrow and one has a triangle. So I'm going to start with number 1, then I will add number 2, and then I will add my third piece. And that triangle just lines up how that should go. But first, I am going to fluff my flowers so we can get some good dimension. And that is so pretty. I just love these flowers. So now that our flowers are drying, we can add the little white flowers. I am calling these the baby's breath. And I am just going to add a whole bunch of dots of glue here and just add these little flowers everywhere. And I don't know how many I cut out. I did cut out a lot. I think you get 10 per run through the machine. And I don't know. I think I did it 3 or 4 times. So now we can go ahead and start building our bouquet. So we didn't add foam strip all the way to the base of our wrapper here. We only did it part way so we can fit our stems in there. And I'm just going to place these how I think I might like them. Our little individual leaves, we're going to use those for filler at the end. So let's go ahead and trim off the excess down here. We can just raise that and trim off those stems. And then we can add a little dot of glue behind each greenery piece where we want it. I will bring in some thicker foam squares for the back of my larger flowers and a little one for my smaller flower. I just want lots of dimension. And if we need to, we can kind of fluff those back up again. So let's figure out how we want our arrangement. I know I want it like that. So let's add our baby's breath right under there. And we can cut this too. You know what? Let's cut it. We don't need it so long because it will be hidden. And we will also use these as filler. So let's put this bunch right up there. We'll add a little glue. Then we'll add our flowers. And then it's just about filling in those areas. I think that little section of baby's breath looks good there. Let's trim off that stem a little, add some glue, and just tuck that right in there. Then we can add more baby's breath, and then we'll just use up our leaves here, and we will just add those randomly all over and fill in any empty space that we think needs to be filled in. So now that we've got all those flowers arranged and we don't need the bottom open anymore, I am just going to add a little bit of glue to that and close up those ends. So I've got a top folding card base here, and for my background, I'm using fog cardstock along with the Altenew Deck Planks 3D embossing folder. I put foam tape behind that. I've got foam tape behind my bouquet, and we will add that to our card base. And I am just going to look at that and try to center that as best as possible. I need to make sure that my baby's breath up on the top doesn't stick out too much. And you know what? We could even trim that off. Let's trim that off and reposition it. Nothing is ever set in stone. You know what? I like that a little bit better. So let's add that in there. So now we can go ahead and add our sentiment. For my sentiment, I'm using the Flowery Hexagon stamp set, and I actually received that free in an order I placed not that long ago. And I'm thinking I want to go with the hello. I just love that dainty little sentiment. We could use Celebrating You, but I think hello is a little bit better because we can use this card for anything. This could be a birthday card. This could be a just thinking of you. This could be anything. So we'll put a little bit of foam tape behind there and add that. And then we've got our little bow. I did stack that. So there's 2 layers. I've got Lawn Fawn pixie dust and then just a piece of white cardstock. Let's fluff that a little bit. And now all we need are some gems. I think we will go with the green glitter drops. These are leaf. And that card is done. This came together so quickly. You could mass produce these really, really easily. I am in love with all of that dimension. So that's our card for today. I also did one in purples. That was Hydrangea and Opulence, Pink Fresh Inks. And then I've got one in the oranges. That I believe was Clementine and Persimmon. And then I also did a pink one that is Bubblegum and Raspberry Bliss. Yes, Bubblegum and Raspberry Bliss. And these cards are so beautiful with very little effort. I think they came out wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Please give me a thumbs up and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.